People who talk to themselves are not confused, they are not weak, and they are not lonely in the way most people assume. What unsettles others is not the behavior itself, it's what the behavior reveals. Because when someone talks to themselves, they are doing something most people avoid at all costs. They are staying inside their own mind without distraction. And the common explanation is simple and wrong. People say self-talk is a habit, a quirk, or a coping mechanism for stress. The common explanation is simple and wrong. People say self-talk is a habit, a quirk, or a coping mechanism for stress. That explanation is comfortable. It keeps the observer safe. This is not about personality, not about intelligence, not about social skill. This is about internal structure. Self-talk is not random noise. It is a visible trace of how someone processes reality when no audience is present. And most people do everything they can to avoid that condition. The human brain is not designed for silence. In silence, unresolved material surfaces, memories, conflicts, unfinished thoughts. When someone talks to themselves, they are externalizing internal processing. They are converting abstract tension into language. This creates control. Language organizes chaos. It gives shape to emotion. It turns vague discomfort into something manageable. But there is a second layer. Self-talk often emerges in people who learned early that their internal world had no reliable listener. So the mind adapted. It became its own witness. Talking to oneself is not a failure of connection. It is a replacement for it. The brain learns, if no one else is stable, I will stabilize myself. Here's where perception matters. Most people rely on external regulation. They think through conversation. They validate through reaction. They calm themselves by being seen. That creates dependency. The person who talks to themselves does the opposite. They internalize the regulating function. But this comes at a cost, because what looks like independence can slowly become isolation. Not social isolation, but cognitive isolation. The danger is not self-talk. The danger is never testing those internal conclusions against reality. Power is not thinking alone. Power is choosing when to think alone and when not to. People who talk to themselves are often running constant internal simulations. They replay conversations. They rehearse outcomes. They argue with imagined versions of others. This creates high internal clarity and low external friction, but it also trains the brain to stay on. The strategic stance is not to suppress self-talk. It is to recognize what function it serves. Is it organizing thought or avoiding exposure? Is it sharpening perception or replacing interaction? Self-talk becomes a liability only when it replaces feedback, when the internal voice becomes unquestioned authority. That is where rigidity forms, not insight. Talking to yourself doesn't mean you lack connection. It means you learn to survive without it. The real question is not why you talk to yourself. The question is this: are you thinking aloud to understand reality or to protect yourself from it? That distinction changes everything. Ever notice how talking to yourself can calm a storm in your head? Those words aren't empty. They are a lifeline for your emotions. When you talk to yourself, your brain starts organizing emotions the way it organizes thoughts. Feeling overwhelmed or frustrated triggers internal tension, and that tension needs an outlet. Self-talk provides it. By saying what you feel out loud, even quietly, you turn an abstract, chaotic emotion into something tangible. Suddenly, anger, anxiety, or sadness is no longer floating in the mind. It has a shape, a rhythm, a name. This process helps regulate intensity. The louder or faster your emotions spike inside, the more urgent the need to externalize them. Speaking to yourself slows the internal storm by creating a rhythm, a predictable pattern. You hear your own voice, responding, guiding, questioning, correcting. It becomes a conversation with your own nervous system. Self-talk also separates thoughts from reactions. When a difficult feeling arises, you can acknowledge it verbally. I'm frustrated, but I can handle this. That act of naming and framing the feeling reduces its automatic power. Your brain can observe rather than react, and this observation itself is a form of regulation. Over time, this builds resilience. Each internal conversation is practice in noticing, understanding, and adjusting emotional states before they control you. It is not about venting. It is about mastering your internal weather. Those who use self-talk for regulation develop a subtle but deep emotional control that others often mistake for calmness or even detachment. Ever catch yourself rehearsing what someone might say before you even speak? Your brain is running silent simulations of their reactions, and your self-talk is the control panel. When you talk to yourself before a conversation, you are running a private simulation. You predict what others might say, how they might react, and how you should respond. It's not mere daydreaming, it's strategic rehearsal. Your mind is scanning past experiences, social cues, and your own expectations to build a model of the interaction. This internal rehearsal reduces uncertainty. Instead of walking into a conversation blind, you've already mapped potential outcomes. Each phrase you say to yourself is a test, a way to refine your approach. You notice patterns. What provokes irritation? What triggers agreement? What closes someone off? Over time, you become highly sensitive to subtle social signals, almost anticipating shifts before they happen. Self-talk also allows you to regulate your emotional responses. By speaking aloud your planned words or reactions, you release tension and clarify intent. You practice phrasing that feels safe and effective. You're training not only your mind, but your body, your voice, tone, and pacing, so that when the real interaction occurs, your nervous system is already calibrated. This process is subconscious for many, but deliberate for some. The effect is a heightened sense of control. You are not just reacting to others, you are preemptively managing the flow of the interaction. Self-talk, in this sense, is a rehearsal space where strategy meets psychology, where you prepare for influence before it ever begins. Have you ever caught yourself saying, "I can't do this," or "I'm not ready," quietly to yourself? That isn't weakness. It's your mind mapping its own limits before reality pushes back. When people talk to themselves about what they can or cannot do, they are often engaging in a subtle form of self-awareness. It's the brain's way of recognizing boundaries, assessing strengths, and predicting where effort may fail. Self-talk is a mirror, reflecting both capabilities and vulnerabilities. Acknowledging limitations internally allows for more precise planning. When you verbalize, "I'm not good at this," or "I need more time," you're not giving up. You are collecting data. You're identifying where mistakes are likely and where preparation is necessary. This internal dialogue is not about discouragement. It's about mental calibration. Self-talk also acts as a risk regulator. By repeatedly noting where you struggle, your mind prioritizes attention and energy. It prevents overcommitment, reducing the chances of wasted effort or emotional burnout. In essence, self-awareness through self-talk is a form of preemptive problem-solving. Over time, this creates a map of personal limits. You start to notice patterns, areas where repeated effort pays off, and areas where repeated failure is likely. Those who use self-talk in this way are not trapped by their limits. They understand them. They learn to maneuver within realistic boundaries, allocate effort efficiently, and engage in challenges strategically rather than blindly. Self-talk becomes a silent advisor, quietly guiding decisions before actions occur. Have you ever rehearsed a conversation in your head before it even happens? Your brain is quietly running scenarios, predicting reactions, and calculating outcomes before you speak. When you talk to yourself about social situations, your brain is running simulations of cause and effect. Every word you consider, every gesture you plan, is a test of potential reactions. This isn't daydreaming. It's a mental rehearsal that allows you to anticipate social consequences without real-world risk. By simulating interactions internally, you can predict where conflict might arise, where agreement is likely, and where your words could misfire. Self-talk creates a safe space to explore multiple possibilities. You experiment, adjust, and refine your approach, all in the mind. The brain practices the scenario so that when the actual interaction happens, it feels familiar, less threatening, and more manageable. This internal simulation also engages emotional processing. You can notice how certain outcomes make you feel: embarrassed, proud, anxious, relieved, before they happen. By pre-feeling the emotional consequences, you regulate your response, preparing your nervous system to react calmly instead of impulsively. Over time, this becomes a tool for social strategy. The brain stores patterns from repeated internal rehearsals, learning which behaviors achieve desired outcomes and which create friction. Self-talk in this way is not about controlling others. It's about increasing your own awareness, foresight, and social precision. It transforms uncertainty into preparation, making you quietly adept at navigating complex social landscapes. Ever feel like everything around you is unpredictable and your mind races to find order? Talking to yourself isn't strange. It's your brain trying to take back control. When the world feels uncertain, self-talk becomes a private control panel. You map possibilities, weigh options, and rehearse outcomes. Each word you speak to yourself is a subtle attempt to organize chaos, to make sense of what cannot be fully predicted. It's the mind's way of reducing anxiety by translating unknowns into manageable steps. This internal dialogue allows you to prioritize responses. By verbally outlining choices, you create a mental hierarchy of actions. If this happens, I'll do that, becomes a mental roadmap, even if circumstances shift. Self-talk does not change the world, but it changes how prepared you feel. That sense of preparedness is interpreted by the brain as control, and control eases tension. Talking to yourself also helps anchor emotions. When uncertainty arises, fear or doubt can spiral. By labeling options and reactions aloud, you externalize internal chaos. You give form to abstract worries, making them tangible and addressable. The brain no longer reacts purely to vague threat. It reacts to something structured. Over time, this practice strengthens resilience. You don't need certainty to act. You need a framework. Self-talk provides that framework. It transforms unpredictability from a paralyzing force into a challenge you can approach with measured thought, creating calm where otherwise there would be panic.